Hey, it's the Nerdy Sports Fan. We're wrapping up our series on breaking down every team's schedule, going through and coming up with a win-loss record prediction. Now, the Carolina Panthers have had a very interesting offseason. They've had a very busy offseason. You have a new head coach who comes from college systems that we're not really sure are going to work in the NFL. You have brand new quarterback. He's not new to the league. Veteran quarterback, Bridgewater. He had a perfect scenario with the Saints last year that he certainly does not this year. So we're not quite sure what Bridgewater is going to bring to the table for this team. You have a new number one wide receiver. And you've got, 7 new defenders from this draft? Who half of them are likely going to end up being relied upon as starters. There's a lot of moving parts. This offseason needed all of the benefits that you get from having a first-year head coach. The not having to be on Hard Knocks being one of them, but more importantly, the extended offseason. You get more time to make sure the team knows what the hell it's doing together when you have a rookie head coach. That doesn't exist this offseason for obvious reasons, but yeah, that's taken away from this team. Because of that, there will be no cohesion, either on offense or on defense for this team. And it's not necessarily their fault. It will be a work in progress as the season goes on, and you're going to sense that theme here, okay? So let's dig into it. Now, week 1, Raiders, this is a loss. This is a loss because you have no cohesion, and they're now at a point where they definitely have it. They're 3 years with the same quarterback and head coach, same offensive set. They're now just building this team for deeper and deeper playoff runs with, specific things here and there on both their offense and their defense to attack specific teams. Once you get to that level of your roster build, you're pretty damn solid. The Panthers are nowhere near that. So this Raiders opening game is a loss. At the Buccaneers, that's a loss. You're on the road to a division rival, which is always tough. That division rival just happens to be a Buccaneers team that was only a bad team last year because of the 30 interceptions thrown by Jameis Winston. You don't have that benefit anymore. Tom Brady is not throwing 30 interceptions. I don't care if it's only his second game in a Buccaneers uniform. He is far too experienced to make those kinds of mistakes. You're going to lose that game. So, week 3 at the Chargers. That's another loss. The Chargers have a defense that's built to stop Pat Mahomes. That kind of defense, it's very, very strong. And their offense is built as a road game offense, really. Tyrod Taylor is a protect the football kind of quarterback. He's a pocket passer first. People love him for his running ability, his highlight reel running ability, but it doesn't happen often. It happens only out of necessity. So they're not going to make mistakes at all. And you're getting them on the road? That's a tough sell for a young team that needs to still coalesce. It's very, very tough to expect that to happen in those situations. So that's a loss against the Chargers. The Cardinals are going to come in week 4. That's a loss. The Cardinals are a year ahead of you in a similar kind of build. They had a new quarterback, a rookie head coach, and all sorts of moving parts on the team's roster last year. They don't have that problem this year. They now have cohesion. They're in the second year of this offense. They know what the hell they're doing with this offense. The quarterback has the second year in the league. And he looked pretty damn good last year. He didn't have the average rookie campaign. So until that man gets hurt, which I'm still pretty sure he's going to get hurt out of the league by being, a smurf. Until Murray comes across a situation like that, I'm going to bet on him progressing. And they were okay to watch last year. They're going to be really fun to watch this year. They're building. They're in year 2 of this roster build. There's still, again, too many questions for the Panthers to think that they're going to be able to compete in games early. And a couple of these teams are teams you should be able to compete against, but the lack of an offseason and all of the interchangeable parts is making it so you're still not there yet. Later in the season, when the schedule gets tougher, it's just because the schedule's tougher. So now you're at the Falcons, becomes a toss-up game. I think the Falcons are going to be pretty bad this year, mostly because Dan Quinn is going to fail at coaching for his career. But you're on the road against a division rival who knows you relatively well. I mean, it is a new coach. It is a new quarterback. There's so much new. It's not really the team that Atlanta knows, for sure. But they have continuity. You don't. They're playing at home. You're not. There are factors on either side that can say, this could go one way or the other, which is why this is more of a toss-up category. All right, so Bears becomes a toss-up game. Not because of where you're at, because of where they're at. Mitchell Trubisky is going to be playing quarterback for his job this season. Matt Nagy is going to be coaching for his job this season. And they're on shaky footing. Okay, they're going to be getting all sorts of questions, especially with the is Foles going to be starting over Trubisky kind of crap. And that's going to make it so they're not competing at the highest level against teams that they have no business losing to. So this game against them, where you have an honest chance of beating them, is really going to be the beginning of the questions of, does Matt Nagy deserve to remain as head coach? Does Mitchell Trubisky deserve to remain as the quarterback? This is the game that starts those questions for the Bears. But again, it's a toss-up because you're not on solid footing either. All right, at the Saints. Let's not kid ourselves. That's a loss. All right, the Saints are a top 5 roster. They've got a Super Bowl winning quarterback, Super Bowl winning head coach. They've had problems in the playoffs, sure. That's the playoffs. We're nowhere near that. Okay? And probably not going to get anywhere near that. All right. Falcons is a win. It's at home. And this is where people start calling for Dan Quinn's head. All right? You have had enough games to really have cohesion. Okay? And with the utter turmoil going on in the Dan Quinn era in Atlanta, finally comes to a boiling point. He finally cannot deal with the stress of people calling for his job any longer. And he starts to lose games against teams that people think he shouldn't have any chance losing. So yeah, you're gonna beat the Falcons pretty bad in your home game against them week 8. Week 9 at the Chiefs. Let's go back to not fooling ourselves. It's the damn Kansas City Chiefs, former Super Bowl winning Kansas City Chiefs from just last year, and they kept that whole roster together. You have zero chance. All right, so Buccaneers. Week 10, that's a loss. You're getting them at home. I get it. But by week 10, Brady and company will have had their whole situation figured out. And it's Tom fucking Brady. Okay? And he's quarterbacking a team that last year was 8-8. And they had 30 interceptions thrown by their quarterback. They're not going to have that many interceptions thrown by Brady. It just will not happen. He is one of the most efficient quarterbacks to ever play in this league. So, to take those turnovers out of the equation, even if you only remove half of them, their odds of winning 4 more games last year go up exponentially. So yes, there's a huge upgrade on that team just because Brady's there. And now you're getting them this late in the season where they actually know what the heck they're doing with each other. I don't give you much of a chance. All right, so Lions, that's a loss. The Lions are in a similar situation to Atlanta. You got a coach who's on the hot seat. You got a dynamic quarterback and wide receiver combinations. They've done a little bit more to fix their offensive line. And I think they're going to have a better chance at actually keeping their coach's job. Because of their strength of schedule, they're not going to be at a point where there's a hell of a lot of pressure on Matt Patricia just yet. And they're still going to be firing on all cylinders offensively. So I do think that that's a loss. At the Vikings is certainly a loss. The Vikings are, a top 8 team in the league right now. They're definitely going to win that division. They have an offense that's causing nightmares for teams all over the league. You have a lot of teams copying that offense. It's the Shanahan, zone running West Coast offense. And the Rams and the Packers are both copying that setup. Atlanta used to use it, but that's when Shanahan was there. So, yeah, that's an offensive nightmare to go up against for the way that this team's defense is relying so much on rookies and was pretty bad last year. I mean, Christian McCaffrey can only do so much. He's going to make the games interesting, but not necessarily winnable against serious playoff contenders. All right, so bye week in week 13. If I'm the Saints, I'm pissed. The Saints got like a week 6 bye week, and here's a team in the Panthers that really has very little chance at all to make the playoffs, and they get one in week 13, that close to the playoffs. That's trash, man. All right, week 14, Broncos is a toss-up game. They also have a lot of moving parts, and they don't have a veteran quarterback. They have a second-year quarterback who did not start most of last year. So he's really green. By this point in the season, he'll have a lot more experience, but he's still not going to have the level of experience that Teddy Bridgewater has. So do I think they have a lot of talent? Yes. Do I think that they have an effective head coach? Sure. Fangio's a good guy. I think that they have just as many questions as the Panthers, though. They've got some moving parts in this offseason that don't necessarily match up with moving parts from previous off seasons, and we'll see how it works for them. So I think they're good enough to make the win possible, not so good to even come close to guaranteeing it. That's a toss-up game. At the Packers, that's a loss. The Packers are building their team to look like San Francisco, and they're going to be able to do that relatively effectively. It's just a matter of if the locker room holds together with the utter meltdown that's coming from Aaron Rodgers because of the Jordan Love draft. I'm worried about the Packers, but not so much that I think that they're going to have a real problem with beating the Panthers. All right, Washington. This is a toss-up game. Do I think the Panthers have a lot of question marks and are going to be relatively bad this year? Sure. Washington is going to be very bad this year. They have a solid running game. They have a solid defense. Who the hell is their quarterback? All right, I don't care how good your defense is. I don't care how good your running game is. If you don't know who your quarterback is, every game becomes at best a toss-up, even against relatively bad teams like the Panthers are going to be this year. So you should have a real chance to win, but you don't have enough to guarantee a win against almost anybody. All right, so Saints, you're going to end the season with a laugher of a loss against the Saints because they're still going to be playing for serious playoff contention where they're vying for the number 1 through number 4 spot in the NFC, similar to what it was last year, where they could land anywhere from number 1 to number 4, depending on the last few games of the year, especially since they're playing the Vikings late in the season too. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough season as far as wins and losses. It's going to be fun to watch because Matt Rule's offense is going to be really fun with Christian McCaffrey. It's going to be fun to watch because, you're watching Teddy Bridgewater and his development with this team. But because there's so many people that have to mesh on the fly, including a new head coaching system and 50% of your defense, there's so many question marks and nowhere near enough consistency to put real, legitimate winning streaks together. It's going to be a bad season wins and loss-wise, but it will be what builds for the future for this team. I think it's going to be a very positive season for this Panthers team. You're going to end up with a high draft pick, which also helps you make sure that there's enough talent on this roster, which I don't think you're devoid of. I just think that the defense needs a year to gel before they're actually a pro unit. You're not sure what the coach is going to put in place for the defense or the offense. And a new head coach, new quarterback, new number 1 wide receiver. It's just too much new to assume positive winning trends for this team. So let me know what you guys think. Hit me up in the comments. Tell me if you think I'm dead wrong and they're going to come out of nowhere and win the division. I'll talk to you all off season about this stuff. Now, if you are a fan of the nerdier content, the video games and stuff, that's moved to a different channel, the Nerd Sports fan. I know, so creative, right? And we're really ramping up fantasy football coverage for this season. So, if you need help setting your lineup, setting your draft order, week to week sit-start questions, or if you just want to watch along live as I watch games this coming season, hit me up on Patreon. Thanks for watching, guys. Really appreciate it.